welcome to AP Art History. We're going to be starting off today with prehistory, prehistoric art. We're going to be working out of two different specific texts with one additional optional text if you would like. The first text we're going to be using, the primary text, is Gardner's Art Through the Ages by Fred Kleiner and Christian Mamiya. You'll definitely want to have that on hand with you. We'll also be using Barron's AP Art History Guide, the 2009 edition by John Nisi. You'll want to pick that up as well. I have one optional text for you, just as an addition. It's completely optional. You don't need to have it, but it's concise. It's called The Annotated Mona Lisa. It's the second edition by Carol Strickland, so you can pick that up if you choose. Today, as I mentioned, we're going to start out with prehistoric art, so you'll want to open up your Gardner's book to Chapter 1, which is the birth of art. You'll also want to open up your Barron's AP Guide to Chapter 1, which is prehistoric art. Let's go ahead and get started and kind of define what prehistoric art is. The word prehistoric means before any written history. It is prehistory. So basically what we're talking about is a lot of things that we find from thousands of years ago that we have nothing written about. It makes it a little difficult to study something when you don't have any writing. So much of what is prehistoric art comes from our guesses and our theories and ideas about who made these, why did they make them, where did they come from, for what purpose. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, some key concepts that I have for you in prehistoric art are following. I believe we have 5 excuse me, key concepts. The first one, there are 3 different phases of prehistoric art, and they're broken down by terms that you can break apart by going back to the Greek. So the first phase that we have, the oldest, right here is Paleolithic. Paleo from the Greek meaning old, lith meaning stone. You'll notice all of these periods have lithic as their ending. So each one of them has to do with stone or Stone Age. So Paleolithic is the old Stone Age. It comes to us from about, whoops, sorry about that. About 30,000 to 8,000 BCE. And remember, when we're talking about BC, before the year 0, we're counting backwards. So the bigger the number, the longer ago it was. We have Meso, which is the middle Stone Age, 8,000 to 5,000 BCE. And we have Neolithic, which is the new Stone Age. So it makes logical sense if you break them apart. Most of what we're going to be looking at comes from the Meso and the Neolithic periods, as much as we can guesstimate. We'll use that word. The next key concept we have, there are 3 phenomena that really constitute the Neolithic period or the New Stone Age. 3 major events. Number 1, the domestication of animals and plants. What happens when you start taking animals and plants and learning how to raise them, and rather than them just running wild, is you start to develop communities. People no longer have to chase their food or hunt and gather, but yet they're learning to farm and to raise animals or livestock in a new way. So that starts to form communities or groups of people who don't need to be nomadic anymore. That's a major development. So the systemization of farming, people are learning how to grow more food than they actually need. Therefore, they can share, they can trade. Again, another reason for the development of community. They also begin to organize groups of people, the third point here. And what we start to see is the beginning of civilization as we know it today. Very rudimentary beginnings. Okay, the third and what I would call the most important key concept that we have here is the word conjecture. What conjecture means is that there's no factual basis for an idea, The reason we say conjecture, again, is because this is prehistory. It's before we have anything written down. There's no way of knowing for sure what these people created their art for, or why they placed it where they did, or what the images that they drew or carved mean. We don't have any way of knowing that. So conjecture is a word that you'll hear me use a lot. You should learn it and get familiar with it. You'll want to use it yourself. Okay, there's no written history from this time. Art historians cannot say with any certainty anything about the purpose and design of much of the art. Yet it shows without debate the urgency for humans to create art from their imaginations. What we do know is that humans did create art. There was a purpose for it. We don't exactly know what it is. We have theories. So taking that, let's take a look at the style of prehistoric art. Most prehistoric art is what we would call naturalistic in style, which means that prehistoric artists were looking to replicate what they saw in drawing, in painting, in carving. They weren't doing a whole bunch of abstract pieces. Rather, they were looking to almost take a photograph of something in the only way that they knew how, which was by drawing it on a wall or something like that. We don't know why, but this is what they did. This is the style. So even today, you can see here, we still do this. There's still a huge emphasis on realistic and naturalistic art. We like to reproduce things that we see in life, even if we alter them a little bit. Here's a question I have for you. What does that tell us about our need to represent, literally you break this word down, represent or present again the world around us? It's a basic human need to recreate or represent things in a new way. So think about that question a little bit and how it might apply to you and the art that you see around you in everyday life. The very last key concept that we're going to look at today is the presence of female sculptures. The reason we have such an emphasis here is because there are small female figurines that have been found all over the continent of Europe, even going down into the Middle East and Africa to some extent. We don't know why they're there. We don't know if it comes from some sort of occult belief, if they're fertility figures. We do not know, but one thing we do know is they all have these things in common. Exaggerated forms, and we'll take a look at that in the next slide, which that conjecture-wise leads us to believe that it's possibly a representation of fertility. Let's go ahead and dig into some of the vocabulary that we're going to use today. And as well as some of our essential questions. These are the questions that you'll want to write down, and you'll want to think about them and jot notes as we go. Okay? What is prehistory? We talked about that a little bit already. So if you'll jot that down and just recap for me what it is. What are the problems and challenges of making meaning of prehistoric art? This is where you specifically want to talk about the idea of conjecture. Why is it difficult to talk about prehistoric art with accuracy? Okay? And the third question, how is prehistoric art useful in understanding the human condition? Again, this is our need to represent or to represent ideas and images. So talk about that right here. Okay? Here's the vocabulary that we're going to be working with today. You can find this in your Barrons in the back of Chapter 1. Quickly, we'll go over it. Archaeology, as you probably already know, is basically the study of ancient people, ancient artifacts, anything that has to do with objects found in history. A cromlech, this is specifically going to apply to architecture, prehistoric architecture. It is a circle of megaliths, and a megalith is a very large stone, a big stone structure. So if you know of stone